Okay, so hey guys, I'm gonna be doing a patch 11.13 B tier list. I haven't done a tier list in a long ass time because I've been hella lazy, but I'll be back into doing the tier lists coming up. So the patch 11.13 B just came out and they did buff Hellion. But I still think Hellions is a really bad comp. It definitely fixed some of the openers though, because before it was just you either have a Dawnbringer opener, a redeemed opener, or a forgotten opener, and then you like every time you find a Hellion in your shop, you're just like, wow, this is a low roll. But you can actually play like Hellion mid game, play around maybe like Brand Ziggs, even like Kled frontline, maybe even reroll Kled. I've seen reroll Kled do some work, but I'm not sure I want to put in my tier list. But anyway, this is all going to be based off of consistency and average placement. It's not even close. It's Dawnbringer for sure. S minus is easily forgotten if you're playing it correctly. Heimer is also really good as just like a free out on 8, like a fast 8 comp. And all these A comps like Aphelios, Nightbringer, Bulldozer, which is going to be Varus and Pantheon, and Draconic A-Bomb can easily reach a cap that is like can contest to win every single time. Like for example, finding Lee Sin 3, Yasuo 3, really good items on Varus going fast 9, running all these value units, like an early Zyra 3, like pivoting into Iron Volibear, stuff like that. Aphelios with Darius and Kindred is super strong. So like these comps can easily win. It just takes some high roll. And then redeemed is like you can never win unless you're pivoting to Heimer. But redeemed can easily get you like a top 4 if you have a good opener for it. But most of the time this is going to be a pivot into Heimer. And then I'll talk about some of the openers, like the obvious ones such as Dawnbringer, which is Gragas Kha'Zix. The Heimer opener is almost always, every time I play Heimer, it's going to be from a Vladimir opener with Warmog's Vladimir, Coven, Nightbringer mid game. I'll talk about some of the openers and when to play these comps, when to roll for them as I go through. But let me just go ahead and start with Dawnbringer. So Dawnbringer, the most important items is probably going to be the Warmogs, Warmogs on Garen. It's Gragas early game, and your opener is always Gragas plus Kha'Zix. You could roll for 6 Dawn on 7, but generally speaking, you want to roll the majority of your board on 4 or 5. So you can actually hit the Volibear, Garen, and you also have higher odds for Ivern and Karma. It really is a high roll comp, but the thing is, you can also itemize Riven with like Runan's BT, Last Whisper, IE. You can even like itemize Nidalee with Shiv and stuff. Titans on Garen is good, Bramble on Garen is good, Morello on Volibear is good. Your item holder is usually always Gragas Kha'Zix, and you play 4 Dawn mid game, 6 Dawn on stage 4, and then probably just this board on 7. If you can go 9 to roll comfortably for Garen and Volibear, a lot of times your 9 is just going to be a 3 Renewer Heimer. I really wouldn't recommend going Renewer spat. It just makes the game way too hard to play, and Renewer is honestly a bait. Like 4 Renewer is not that good. Karma doesn't need tier items like Shadow Hodge, double tier items and from Hodge is good. Rabadon's is good, JG is good, Shadow JG is good, Shojin's good, Blue Buff's good. They're all really good. You can even carry Soraka mid game if you want, but also Katarina is a really good mid game holder for Karma items, and then you can go like Gragas Warwick, Brawler, Forgotten, Katarina with Karma items, and then Gragas with Warmogs. But the hard carry of the comp is honestly the Warmogs. Even if you don't find Garen, obviously Garen is super good, but Gragas with Warmogs like tanks super hard. Iron 2 tanks super hard. Volibear tanks super hard. Once you get this board though, it really is like, it just feels like you're playing. It's unfair. You definitely lose to like Draven with BT if you're if it's equal roll. But I'll talk about the Forgotten comp next. So this is going to be the Forgotten comp. The way you kind of play this game is, or play this comp, is on the armories, on stage 2 armory, you always go for the shadow item. On stage 3, you always go for the shadow item. On carousel, you always go for the shadow item if possible. For example, on the second armory, if I were to get shadow blue, or shadow tier, you almost like, yes, shadow blue is best in slot rise, but you never go for like the finish of the blue buff. You always just go for another shadow item. Like Shadow Spark is good on Katarina, Shadow Locket is good, Shadow Warmogs is good, Shadow Runans is good, Shadow BT is good, Shadow IE is good, Shadow Last Whisper is good. There's just so many shadow items that you can make. Even like Shadow RFC, Shadow Zephyr, Shadow Sunfire. You basically just always go for a shadow item and you just slam whatever shadow item you hit. And then you play this opener around like a Warwick 2, and then you just hold the Forgotten units, and on 3-2, you're willing to roll that. Like, obviously, you don't want to roll to 0, but rolling to 10, like, even if you hit 6 Forgotten with 30 gold left, you almost always want to roll to 10 if you have some pairs. So, like, if you have Hecarim pair, Thresh pair, you probably want to roll for Hecarim 2, Thresh 2. The Warmogs is super valuable because the only problem with Forgotten is that your frontline is a little bit garbage. But when you have like the Warmogs Hecarim, it's super good. And then a lot of times on level 7, it's always Rel. Rel is so broken. And then on level 8, you could do Nautilus if it's an AD heavy lobby, but it's never an AD heavy lobby. It's always going to be Lulu 2 or Kindred. And then the reason the Kindred's like here is because it'll always ult here. The Rise can, you can do Victor before you find Viego, and then you can do like here, and then imagine this is Victor, and you can get Thresh bait if there is more people playing Forgotten. Last Whisper BT is really good for Draven, but just keep in mind that playing like Draven items holding on Vayne is really bad. The chances you go 8th is actually pretty common. But you always just play super aggressive. You roll down to 10 on 3-2. Get your upgraded frontline. You hit everyone for 15, and then if you don't find Draven on 4-1, it's fine. You can still get like a top 5. If you find Draven, it's a guaranteed top 4. I wouldn't recommend going for Draven items unless like Shadow Zeke's is pretty good because it can actually be held on Vayne. But if you go like BT Last Whisper on Vayne, you're basically down items. Carrying like everything is super important. Thresh 2 is important. Hecarim's important. Katarina is important. Everything is important. I would save. You can even do like Shadow Shojin Rise. GA Shadow Blue is super good. Best in slot is probably IEBT Last Whisper. This is like my go-to comp. It's definitely like one of the best comps in the game. And then there's going to be Heimer. And basically you just play around Heimer. You can carry Lux early game. You can even do like this transition from Karma. You can play 4 Invoker. You can play Taric. It's generally just going to be all the front lines. So you can do like Nautilus, Rel, Jax, Mystics, Taric. It's just infinite. But like I really like Baby Dragon on this corner or this corner. Generally this corner though. I keep it spread out for the Karma players so you don't get bursted. Like even if you don't hit Garen, it's fine. You can do like Karma Ivern. You can do Teemo Ivern. It doesn't really matter. The general carry is going to be Heimerdinger. You can also go like Coven. A lot of times the opener for this is going to be 4 Nightbringer, 2 Renewer with Lissandra, and then you can go Coven Vladimir. Vladimir can hold the Archangel super well. The Lissandra can hold the Heimer items, and then Vladimir can also hold the tank items for Garen. So if you aren't pivoting into Karma and you can actually pivot into like a Coven Heimerdinger board, a lot of times that's just like a guaranteed top 4 because Vladimir is like one of those comps that's super strong on 4-1. Or super strong up to 4-1, and then you do start falling off. But the thing is, you just sack 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. You probably lose like 30 to 40 HP, but you'll probably be level 8 with like 40 something gold with like 50 HP left, and that's enough gold to just like turn the game around. So this is going to be Heimerdinger. You usually pivot into this board from that Vladimir opener, but you can also go from the Dawnbringer. But usually, if you have the Dawnbringer opener, I would just play Dawnbringers because you can bring along like the Riven, Nidalee, all that stuff. Oh, okay. I think it's a little bit out of order. This is actually an A- comp. Only because this comp is like not that good. A lot of times late game like Varus, Syndra, like Leona are all super outscaled, and yes, 6 Redeemed is a pretty strong synergy, but they just nerfed Lux, they just nerfed 6 Redeemed, and like even before the nerfs, I think this was still losing to Dawnbringer most of the time. But if you can pivot this board, play around like the Nautilus, Rel, Kindred, and then maybe like Taric, and then pivot this into Heimer. This is another one of those transitions that can transition into Heimer without having to hold all the Dawnbringers. You definitely need like a Leona Aatrox opener. And then the JG on Vel'Koz is okay. You can actually carry Kayle as well. You can do Kayle over Varus, Taric over Nautilus. If you have Redeem Spat, you can go 9 for 9 redeemed, and that's really strong. Like this comp, it's honestly, it just should be a Heimer transition. But sometimes you're stuck with this and you're just playing for top 5, which is fine. Okay, so this is Aphelios. Aphelios is a really strong comp, but it's basically the AD variant of Karma. So you know how Karma like spikes with Volibear and Garen, specifically Garen. Aphelios spikes super hard with Darius and Kindred. Kindred gives Mystic and 4 Ranger and is also like a good Ranger. Stalls for your backline. I'm doing a slight spread. I wouldn't even mind doing something like this just because it'll still hit the Aphelios and you don't get one shot by Karmas. You can, there's a lot of things you can do. You can, like, let's say you don't hit Darius, you don't run Lee Sin, you can run Infinite Mystic. You can go like 4 Mystic with Taric Morgana frontline. You can drop 2 Rangers, such as like, let's say you don't hit Kindred, you can drop Varus and Kindred and run Mystics or Nightbringers accordingly. It's just like you just make sure you have upgraded units, and if you really have nothing, you can even go like Mordekaiser, Diana if you want. Like the units are actually pretty good. Last Whisper is pretty good if you can't find Darius. Like BT is fine, obviously. IE is okay. Last Whisper is okay. I think I already said Last Whisper. Like tank items on Darius are good. Like generally speaking, you want to roll the majority of your gold. Like you can probably go an A-bomb all the way up until 4 or 5. It's probably the most common opener is A-bomb, and you have Nunu holding your Darius items, and you have your the rest of the A-bomb split the damage items for Aphelios. Like Runans is super good. DB is okay on the A-bomb. It's not that good, but it's okay. And it's the same thing. You just sack 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, and you roll the majority of your gold on 8. If you do have to roll on 7, this comp is a lot weaker because you're just basically rolling like no gold on 8. But this comp is easily one of the highest caps. It's just you need like infinite money because how much stronger your board gets with Kindred and Darius is a lot. And then this is going to be the Yazuo board. It's basically it's the only time you play this comp is basically when you find the Yazuo from box. Also, Yazuo without Shadow Hodge honestly is not that good. But you basically go 3-2, you roll for 4 Nightbringer, and then maybe like 3 Skirm, 4 Nightbringer, or maybe like 3 Skirms, upgraded Skirms, 2 Nightbringer and stuff like that, skirmishers, and then all that stuff. You can even go like Vladimir, Sejuani, just upgraded stuff on 3-2. Just like 4 upgraded Nightbringers on 3-2 is really good. Sometimes you'll high roll a Diana and you can find 6 Nightbringer. But you basically just spike on 3-2, and then you spike on 4-1, and then you just sit and use your HP lead to eventually hit Lee Sin 3, Yasuo 3. And if you're like Omega high roll, you can go Pantheon 3. I usually never go for Morgana 3 though. Yeah, you just slow roll on 7 for this exact board. Sometimes you can't hit the Morgana and Diana comfortably on 7, which is fine. You'll definitely like hit Rel. You can maybe go Sejuani as one of the extra Nightbringers, and you can run Rel with Nautilus. You can even do like Mystic with Morgana. There's just like a lot of like random stuff. You just, generally speaking, you just play upgraded units, use your HP lead, and go for Yasuo 3 and Lee Sin 3. Since Lee Sin is good, AP items on Lee Sin is good, HP items on Mordekaiser is also good, like Frozen Heart and Diana is good, Shadow Locket's okay as well. There's just like a lot of good stuff, but this comp is still really strong. It just requires like a Yasuo from box. I don't see myself playing this comp like almost ever if you don't have Yasuo from box, because there's just better transitions, honestly. Because basically when you hold the Yasuo, you already know what you're holding. Like you almost never hold the Sejuani, you never hold the Vlads. But if you have the Yasuo from box, you can actually afford to hold them without giving up your mid game too hard. And then the last comp is actually like really strong. It's just that you basically need these 3 items. Shojin makes it so the Varus and Pantheon kind of match each other. You don't need the Ranger. Your 7 is almost always no Kindred or no Ranger. It's almost always just frontline plus Pantheon. As much frontline as possible plus Pantheon and Varus. But obviously you want Rel, Lux, Varus because you want the 3 redeemed. But how the interaction works is Pantheon's E or Pantheon's ult that like shoots like the little spears and stuff. Like every single tick procs Varus ult. And then when you have Shojin, it matches with the Pantheon, so they ult together. The Shadow Last Whisper will make it so the Pantheon, and the Shadow Last Whisper with JG specifically, will make it so the Pantheon E can crit with the Varus and then also proc the Last Whisper, so Pantheon actually just one-shots the entire board for you. Even Jax is doing some work, Trundle's doing work. Like Rel is super tanky, Kindred's good, Lux is good, Lulu's good. You can play Rise. You can even play Ashe, Aphelios. It's basically just like on 7, you're playing around Varus items and then frontline Pantheon items, and you just play whatever you hit. But the comp, basically, if you can go 9, is super strong. Your frontline is insane, and then your damage is also super high from Pantheon. A lot of times you do lose to like a Cap Dawnbringer board, but that's why this comp isn't like S, but it's definitely really strong. And then for the honorable mentions, I don't really want to talk about Draconic A-Bomb, because this comp is honestly just finding Draconic on 2-1. Like, I think pivoting into this comp is like the amount of times you go 8th. Like, sure, even if you pivot into it at 3-2, like you roll for the exact board, like 4 Brawler, 3 A-Bomb, it's just like the amount of times you go 8th is just not worth actually playing it. But if you hit it on 2-1, you can go like 4 A-Bomb with Zyra carry, with Shojin, Shojin JG, and like AP items like Archangel's good, Ginsu's good. Or you can play the Ashe variant with like Last Whisper, Ginsu, DB, BT, Runans, all that stuff, and then just pivot into like a Ranger board. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like talking about Draconic though, because it's just the earlier you hit Draconic, the better it is. And then there is like the Hellion opener, but the Hellion opener almost always pivots into Heimer, but sometimes you can play 5 Hellion. It's just the way you always played it. I'm not going to really go in depth into that. I don't think the comp's that good. I think it's way too inconsistent. I think if you actually really want to climb past like 1500, it's always Dawnbringer and Forgotten. These comps like almost never go 8th. Aphelios, I've seen go 8th multiple times. You never actually play Nightbringer unless you find the Yazuo opener. I've seen Bulldozer go 8th because people greed for Varus items. I see Draconic A-Bomb go 8th all the time. Heimer is honestly not 8thable because you don't really play Heimer unless you hit Heimer. You can actually just play some random AP garbage. And then Redeemed is like a top 6 if you really can't transition. But like I think Dawnbringer and Forgotten are just way too inconsistent. So they're definitely probably the 2 strongest comps this patch. But anyway, that's my tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it helps you guys. It's going to be like this for a week. So anyway, peace.